I might have just ruined my cousin's wedding and I don't feel bad. My name's Kyle, 34, and I don't know what the hell I am to my family anymore. A cousin? A traitor? The guy who said the quiet part out loud at exactly the wrong time. Maybe all of it. Or none. I honestly don't know. What I do know is this: Saturday afternoon, I stood in a church packed with flowers and fake promises, and I opened my damn mouth when I should have just clapped like everyone else. It started about 6 months ago when my cousin, Ryan, announced he was getting married to his girlfriend, Cassidy. Everyone acted like it was the second coming of Christ. Group chats exploded. My mom called me crying with happiness, saying it was finally happening. The whole family treated it like we were about to crown royalty or something. And look, I was happy for him, at first. Ryan's been through a lot. Lost his dad young. Dropped out of college. Struggled with drinking for a while. But he got clean, got a good job, met Cassidy, and it seemed like he was finally pulling it together. Except, I knew some things other people didn't. Things Ryan probably thought would never come out. Like how 3 months after they got engaged, I caught him drunk off his ass at a dive bar near my apartment, whispering into some random woman's ear, laughing too loud, touching her lower back like he wasn't wearing a $2,000 ring meant for Cassidy. I remember standing there in the doorway, frozen, like some idiot extra in a movie, while he kissed her full on the mouth and ordered another shot. He didn't even see me. Or maybe he did and just didn't give a damn. I told myself not to get involved. Family's messy enough without me playing moral referee. I figured maybe he'd wake up hungover and guilty and realize he was throwing away something good. Maybe it was a one-time thing. But it wasn't. Over the next few months, little cracks started showing everywhere. Ryan would brag about how Cassidy didn't need to know everything while tossing back beers at family parties. Once, he even joked that marriage is just good PR. His words. Not mine. Meanwhile, Cassidy stayed sweet and oblivious, calling him babe every other sentence, showing off her ring, dragging him to cake tastings and engagement photo shoots. She was all in. And him? He was halfway out the door, every chance he got. It made me sick to watch. So when the wedding day rolled around, I was already chewing on a ball of anger the size of a fist. I kept telling myself, shut up, show up, smile for the pictures. But sometimes anger has other plans. The church smelled like old wood and cheap perfume. Cassidy looked beautiful, like, knock the breath out of you beautiful. Lace and satin and a smile that didn't know it was walking straight into a buzzsaw. Ryan stood there, handsome as hell, beaming like the star of a toothpaste commercial. The priest did the whole bit. The readings. The vows. Everything went smooth until the part where he asked if anyone had, just cause, why these two shouldn't be joined together. And there it was. That moment. That heavy, frozen pause where everyone's supposed to just sit tight and let the show go on. My palms were sweating. My heart was hammering against my ribs. I swear the air got thicker, like the walls themselves were daring me to say something. I looked at Cassidy. I looked at Ryan. And I spoke. I didn't shout. I didn't grandstand. I just said, steady and clear, I can't let this happen. Ryan's been cheating on Cassidy. He doesn't deserve her. For a second, the world stayed frozen. Like even the sunlight through the stained glass windows stopped moving. Then everything exploded. Cassidy's face drained so fast I thought she might faint. Her mother gasped loud enough to echo. People were twisting around in their pews to stare at me like I'd just whipped a grenade out of my pocket. Ryan? Ryan turned this ugly shade of red, like his whole face was fighting not to explode. He said, low and shaking with rage, you lying piece of shit. Sit down. But the words were barely out of his mouth before Cassidy dropped her bouquet and backed away from him like he'd grown horns. She didn't even yell. She just said, real quiet, real broken, is it true? Ryan opened his mouth, probably to spin some masterpiece of a lie, but it didn't matter anymore. She already knew. You could see it in her shoulders, the way they sagged all at once. Like every weight she'd ever carried had just doubled. I wish I could say I felt triumphant. That I stood there like some knight in shining armor, proud of what I'd done. But I didn't. I felt hollow. Shaky. Like the floorboards under my feet weren't fully real. I might have just ruined my cousin's wedding and I don't feel bad. Because the truth is, I didn't just ruin Ryan's wedding. I detonated a landmine under every relationship in my family. And the worst part? I don't feel bad about it. Not even a little. The silence after Cassidy's question felt like a crater. She was standing there in her dress, veil slightly crooked, arms limp by her sides, and her eyes locked on Ryan like he was a stranger who'd just stolen her wallet. And he couldn't even meet her gaze. That told her more than anything I'd said. He finally muttered, "Can we talk somewhere private?" But his voice was weak, almost shaky. Like someone who'd just been caught doing something they swore they'd never get called out on. Cassidy didn't move. Her mom was the first to react. She stepped forward, whispering something in her daughter's ear, probably trying to steer her out of the blast radius, but Cassidy shook her head, hard. Her whole body was trembling, like she was physically holding herself together by sheer will. That's when the shouting started. Ryan's older brother, Nate, stormed up the aisle toward me, all puffed chest and fury. "What the hell is wrong with you?" he barked. "You couldn't wait. You had to do this now." I tried to handle it quietly, I said. I could feel my pulse hammering behind my eyes. He didn't stop. He never stopped. "I don't care," Nate snapped. "You blew up his life in front of everyone. You think that makes you a damn hero?" I wanted to scream at him. Ask why the hell everyone was so eager to protect the guy lighting the fire and not the woman trapped inside. But I didn't. I just stared at him, calm and steady, and said, I wasn't trying to be a hero. I just couldn't let her marry someone who's been lying to her for over a year. And then came my mom. God. Her face was pale, lips pressed into a hard, trembling line. She didn't yell. She didn't say my name. She just looked at me like she didn't recognize who I was. That hurt more than Nate's shouting ever could. Cassidy finally moved, just turned on her heel and walked straight down the aisle, out of the church, her veil fluttering behind her like a torn flag. Her mom followed. Her dad stayed back, looking stunned, blinking like he'd just stepped into a dream he didn't understand. Ryan didn't go after her. That should tell you everything. Instead, he walked over to me. "Close. Too close," he said, low and full of venom. "You just ruined my entire life." And I said, "No, man. You did." He reared back like he might hit me. For half a second, I was ready for it. I wanted it. I wanted him to give me a reason to swing. But his fiancée just walked out of her own wedding because of what I said. Punching me in front of his grandparents wasn't going to help. So he turned and walked away instead. Straight to the side door, vanishing like he couldn't stand to be in the same room with what he'd built. And what he'd broken. The rest was a blur. People whispering in corners. Bridesmaids crying. Some of Cassidy's friends glaring at me like I just kicked a puppy. Others looked more conflicted. One even gave me the smallest nod before disappearing with the rest of the bridal party. The officiant just stood there, holding his little book like it had betrayed him. I left before anyone could throw rice or fists. The Real explosion came later. That night, my phone lit up like a slot machine. Missed calls. Angry texts. Half the family calling me everything from a traitor to a drama-addicted narcissist. My aunt, Ryan's mom, left a voicemail I'll never forget. Her voice was raw, like she'd been crying. She said, "You humiliated my son. You destroyed a sacred moment. I hope you're happy." Was I happy? No. But I sure as hell wasn't sorry, either. Because somewhere in that mess, Cassidy sent me a message. Just one line. "Thank you for telling me. I didn't want to be the last to know." That one line kept me grounded while the rest of the world spun. The days after felt like walking barefoot over glass. I didn't go to the reception, obviously. Not that there was one. From what I heard, Cassidy canceled everything. The food was donated. The venue refunded what they could. Her parents took her home, and Ryan, well, no one really knew where Ryan went. Some said he stayed in a hotel. Others said he was holed up at Nate's place, drunk and blaming everyone but himself. Classic Ryan. I tried to keep my head down, but the damage had been done. Half my family cut me off. The other half kept things awkwardly polite, like I was radioactive but maybe useful in a future emergency. My mom didn't speak to me for a week. When she finally did, she sat across from me at her kitchen table and said, "You're right about Ryan. You were right. But I wish you hadn't done it like that." I asked, "So I should have just let her marry a cheater?" And she looked at me, tired, eyes wet, and said, "No. But I wish you'd found a way that didn't tear everything apart." I didn't say anything. Because that's the part nobody seems to get. There wasn't a way. Ryan wasn't going to stop. Cassidy wasn't going to find out until it was too late. And me? I was supposed to sit there and pretend like it was all okay. Like the cake wasn't baked with poison. Screw that. I didn't burn that wedding to the ground. I just refused to keep pretending it wasn't already on fire. 3 weeks went by. 3 weeks of silence from Ryan. 3 weeks of awkward texts from relatives pretending not to pick sides while very obviously doing exactly that. 3 weeks of going to work, eating alone, trying not to check Cassidy's social media because part of me didn't want to know if she'd gone back to him. Then, one night, I got a message from her. No greeting. No emoji. Just, "Can we talk?" I didn't answer right away. I stared at the screen for maybe 10 minutes, heart pounding like I was the one on trial. Then I wrote back, "Whenever you're ready." She called 5 minutes later. Her voice was quiet, raw, like someone who hadn't slept right since the church. "I don't know if this is a mistake," she said, "but I needed to ask you something." "Anything," I said. "Shoot." She took a long breath. I could hear her steadying herself. How long had it been going on? With the other women? I felt that question like a punch. Not because I didn't know the answer, but because saying it out loud would make it real for her. "At least 6 months, I said. "That I know of. Maybe longer." "Jesus," she whispered. "Then, why didn't anyone else tell me?" I said nothing. What the hell could I say? Because no one else wanted to tell her. No one wanted to be the one to ruin the fantasy. People would rather play nice and keep the family barbecue drama-free than be the one stuck holding the hard, messy truth. She asked, "Did you think I wouldn't believe you?" And I said, "No. I thought you might." And that's what scared me. There was silence on the line. Then she said something I didn't expect. "You know the worst part? I had a feeling. I just kept pushing it down. Kept telling myself I was being paranoid. That he loved me." My throat clenched. That hit too close. She laughed bitterly. "I even apologized once. I found lipstick on his shirt, lipstick, Kyle, and I apologized. I said it must have been mine. I let him convince me it was. That broke something in me. I wanted to drive to wherever she was and shake Ryan by the collar until he understood what he'd done to this woman. Not just breaking her trust, breaking her mind, making her question herself to the point where she apologized for his cheating." She asked, softer now, "Why'd you do it? I mean, really?" And I told her the truth. "I couldn't watch you walk into a lie. You didn't deserve that. You still don't." I heard her sniff, once, then the sound of a lighter. She was smoking. Cassidy never smoked when she was happy. "Thanks," she said, "for saying it. For doing something when nobody else did." Then she hung up. No goodbye. No see you later. Just silence. The next hit came a few days later. My uncle, Ryan's dad's brother, cornered me at a grocery store of all places. Right by the produce section. He put a hand on my cart, stopping it like a cop pulling someone over. "You feel good about yourself?" he asked. "That girl was the best thing that ever happened to Ryan. She was too good for him," I said. He gritted his teeth. "You humiliated him." "No," I shot back. "He did that to himself." He leaned in, voice dropping. "Family protects family, Kyle. You went out there and threw your own cousin under a bus." I looked him straight in the eyes and said, "No, I dragged him out of traffic before he took someone else with him." He scoffed and walked off, muttering something about how I'd changed. That stuck with me longer than it should have. Because the truth is, I had changed. That moment at the altar. That was me drawing a line in the sand between who I'd been, quiet, complicit, conflict avoidant, and who I wasn't going to be anymore. Because silence is complicity. And I was done being silent. About a week after that, I got the second and final message from Ryan. No apology. No reflection. Just, "Hope you're happy. You got what you wanted. Family hates me. Cassidy's gone. Congratulations." That was it. I stared at it for a long time. I thought about replying. About asking if he even realized how much pain he'd caused, not just to Cassidy, but to every person who ever tried to believe in him. I thought about telling him he could fix it, apologize, get help, maybe try to become the man he pretended to be. But I didn't send anything. Because deep down, I knew it wouldn't matter. Ryan didn't want to be better. He wanted to be forgiven without changing. The real blow came at my parents' anniversary dinner. It was small, just family, but when I walked in, half the table went quiet. Like I was a ghost walking through the door. One of my cousins wouldn't even look at me. My aunt talked around me like I wasn't there, smiling politely, never making eye contact. And my mom kept trying to force conversation, desperate to patch things up, like a hostage negotiator at a family reunion. It was brutal. I left early. And as I walked to my car, I realized something that knocked the wind out of me. Telling the truth doesn't set you free. It sets everyone else on fire, and then leaves you standing in the smoke, trying to figure out if it was worth it. A month passed. No more calls. No more texts. The silence had become a second skin. I'd grown used to the cold shoulder, the awkward half-smiles at family events, the whispered conversations that stopped when I entered the room. I'd been labeled, not as the one who told the truth, but as the one who destroyed the illusion. And then, out of nowhere, Cassidy texted again. I want to meet. Just us. 1 hour. You pick the place. I chose a quiet diner on the edge of town. One of those places where the waitresses call you Han, and the coffee tastes like it was brewed out of spite. I sat there nursing a mug, leg bouncing, until she walked in. She looked different. Hair tied back. No makeup. Jeans and an old hoodie. But there was something in her eyes, steel, maybe. Or just the weight of someone who'd survived a storm and was still figuring out what was left standing. She slid into the booth and didn't even say hello. Just looked at me like she was reading a file. I talked to Ryan, she said. Yesterday. I didn't say anything. She nodded, like she expected that. He cried. Told me you'd been jealous of him since we got engaged. Said you made it all up. I let out a bitter laugh. Of course he did. She leaned back, arms crossed. I asked him to show me proof that it wasn't true. Texts, call logs. Anything. He said he deleted everything. Convenient, I muttered. She smiled, but it was all teeth. That's what I said. I studied her for a beat. So why are you here? Because I needed to look you in the eye and ask one last time, she said. Were you telling the truth? I didn't flinch. Yeah, I said. Every word. She looked down, fiddled with a sugar packet. I figured. Then she dropped the packet, leaned forward, and said something I wasn't ready for. My parents wanted me to forgive him. What? They said everyone makes mistakes. That I should consider what it would mean to throw away a life we'd built. I shook my head. You didn't throw anything away. He did. I know, she said. But I almost listened to them. I almost went back. I could feel something tightening in my chest. Not anger. Not hope either. Just sadness. The kind you feel when you realize how many people would rather watch a lie than face the truth. She reached across the table, lightly tapped the rim of my coffee cup. You saved me from wasting my life on someone who only loved the version of me that didn't ask questions. I didn't know what to say. I'm leaving town, she said. New job in Portland. New start. When? Next week. I nodded. Good for you. There was a pause. Then she asked, you ever regret saying it? That day? No, I said. Not once. She smiled. This time, softer. Real. Good. We left it at that. No hug. No big goodbye. Just a look, a nod, and the quiet understanding of two people who were once on the edge of someone else's fantasy, and chose not to jump. After that, I didn't hear from her again. And honestly, I didn't need to. She made her choice. Now I had to make mine. The family never fully recovered. Ryan tried to rehab his image, started showing up to church again, volunteered at a food drive, posted long vague quotes about growth and self-reflection on Facebook. The kind of performative bullshit you can smell from across a parking lot. My aunt played along. My uncle, too. Everyone tiptoed around the truth like it was radioactive. Me? I got uninvited from Thanksgiving. They blamed space, said things were tense, but I knew what it meant. I'd crossed a line, and nobody wanted to sit across the table from the guy who reminded them how fake everything had been. My mom was stuck in the middle. She begged me to come for dessert instead, to ease the tension. I told her I loved her. But I wasn't going to beg for scraps at a table I used to belong to. That night, I ate Chinese takeout alone. And you know what? It was peaceful. No fake smiles. No sidelong glances. Just quiet. Honest, earned quiet. A few months later, I saw Ryan in a parking lot. I didn't plan it. Was just grabbing coffee on a Saturday. And there he was, leaning against his car, sipping a smoothie like he hadn't thrown his entire life into a wood chipper and blamed everyone else for it. He saw me. Smiled like nothing had ever happened. Hey, he said. I didn't stop walking. He called out, you still mad? I turned. Mad? I said. No. I'm just done. He blinked, caught off guard. You burned a bridge, man. No, I said. I stopped pretending it was a bridge and not a goddamn plank. Then I got in my car and drove away. And for the first time in months, I didn't look back.